So there's this famous phrase in the world of Subaru that if you want to impress her, buy her an Impreza. Well, friends, today, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, we've got the 2014 Subaru Impreza, and this is the 4th generation, for which design started in 2011. Now, if you really want to impress her, you would actually want to impress her even when it comes to the maintenance. And so this car has gotten quite a lot of attention from especially the female category in our country. And I mean, it goes without saying, it's got a beautiful face on the front, which kind of looks cute. That's what they say. But to me, it kind of looks angry. Stick around, because in this video, I'm going to tell you why you need to be cautious when you're actually buying the Subaru Impreza, because it's cute, it's great, it's fuel economical. However, there's some things you need to know. Let's get into it. So the version we've got here is the IL with eyesight. So it's got the pre-collision mitigation system, auto start stop, cruise control, and a few of those fancy things that most of which we don't use in Uganda. Now this car was released with the 1.6 liter, the 2 liter mainly. Some are 2-wheel drive and some are 4-wheel drive. Now the version we've got here is the 4-wheel drive, what they call the symmetrical all-wheel drive, with 2 liter engine, naturally aspirated. So I'm going to take you around this car, and do let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let me know if you agree. And don't forget to subscribe, because right now we've got only 2,000 subscribers and we desire to grow and bring you more interesting car content and very useful and helpful content that will help you make your car purchase decision much easier and more informed. Now the Impreza was totally redesigned from 2011, so there's nothing that it has from the 3rd generation except maybe a bit of the shape, which reminds me of a certain animal. So it got a redesigned engine, it's got a redesigned suspension, which is more comfortable, more roomy, and gives you more legroom. These cars come when they're really, really low, and our roads, as you can see, are not the best for these cars. So what most people will do will get bigger tires and also put a little spacer just to give it a little height increment. Otherwise, even after height increment, you can notice that it's fairly a low vehicle. Now, the old engines had a timing belt. These have a timing chain. Now, that helps with kind of giving the engine a less number of things to maintain over high mileages. Now, when you look at this car, it's kind of got an angry look at the front, and I don't know whether maybe that's what gets the ladies, because every lady you'll show this car will tell you it's cute. Some might probably just complain because of the fact that it's lower, so people consider buying the XV. The XV is pretty much this car in gumboots. One of the cool things you'll notice about the Impreza is that everything is sort of just where it should be. The push button, of course the traction control system, the auto start stop, the brightness of everything, sort of the paddle shifters, the buttons, everything is sort of where it should be. It's got dual AC, so you can have your own temperature on this side and your passenger can have their own temperature on the other side. Some models will come with leather seats, others will have these fabric seats. However, the difference in the comfort is pretty much minimal or inexistent. Now I'm going to go to the first point of caution. Now you want to do what they call a pre-purchase inspection before you buy these cars, that's Impreza, but also Foresters and all, mainly the new Subarus after 2012. Why? Because these cars tend to behave differently when they cross about 110, 120,000 kilometers, one of which is the oil consumption. Now, this is something that you will not notice, especially if your route is just around town. Maybe your radius is about 18 kilometers from your workplace, and that's pretty much what you do all month. But if your distance is probably out of town, say Mukono, Gayaza, and etc., and you do a daily route from home to work, you're going to notice that every so often you might need to top up the engine oil a little bit. Now, if you never notice, then you might find yourself in bigger issues, because if an engine has no oil, definitely you're going to get into issues of overheating. The other thing that you might realize in these cars is something to do with the coolant. Coolant tends to reduce a little bit, and if you notice some of those things, check with the technician just to make sure that your car will last. It was a manufacturer issue, but Subaru is very keen on what they call feedback. So the newer models, the GT models, that's GT7, GT whatever, from 2017, they kind of dealt with that issue a little bit. But if you have these, the 2011 to 2016, you want to keep checking the oil. But it's mostly evident from 2011 to 2015, where you find that you have to keep topping up engine oil. So one of the challenges I have with this CVT transmission, or you can call it continuously variable transmission, it's very, like once you step, it's not gradual. So you find that you always kind of have to manage your foot, otherwise you're always, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, but as you drive, it sort of just calms down and relaxes, and everything just becomes calm and everything. And of course, it shows me the eco light, which probably means that I'm being fairly economical. So in this video, I'm going to be as blunt and as honest as possible when it comes to the Subaru Impreza. Now, the one we are in right now is the 2000cc petrol, naturally aspirated, all-wheel drive. So meaning it has four-wheel drive, or whatever you can call it. So this is pretty much like the most ideal car that you would need if, for example, you live in areas where maybe when it rains it's a little slippery and you need sometimes a little bit more power, maybe from the behind wheels. Yeah, the most fuel economical is the 1.6 two-wheel drive, and I think it's something that people were surprised when Subaru started doing two-wheel drive vehicles. So I'm going to start with the good things about the Subaru Impreza. Now, this car is smooth. Yes, there's a smoothness that comes with Toyotas, and mainly because of their light engines, the aluminium engines and all. They are silent and light and give you quite a smooth ride. However, that was the pre-collision. It has the eyesight, so eyesight technology. So if it sees somebody crossing the road and I'm not braking, it will beep. And if I get too close, the car will brake on its own. That's pretty cool tech, right? And then also, if, for example, there's an obstacle or another vehicle at the front, it will warn me, oh, you know, something. However, up here, you can turn off those buttons and then, you know, it will kind of just leave you to kill yourself if you want. Yeah, one of the things that sometimes frustrates people, a lot of people, is just the fact that we've got endless humps on the road, but also mainly because we've got powerful cars, but we don't have the infrastructure to actually experience the power and speed that our cars can offer or have. So the good things about this car, it's very comfortable, and as long as your windows are up like this, and I mean these are even tinted, the car is literally smooth. And the advantage of this one is the fact that it's got the four-wheel drive, so it boosts the power, like, so it's always got that available torque when you need it. Then I've got a lot of adjustable seating, so I can adjust my seat to the way I would like it to be and make sure if it's a long journey, I probably will not have issues with the car. Another good thing about the Subaru Impreza is just the fact that it's very, very compact. So everything is sort of where you want it to be. So you've got the AC right here. You've got, if you've got your lover on your right, on the seat right here, you can hold hands. If you've got kids at the back, they're quite comfortable as well. And not to mention, there's also the very wide doors. I love the way the doors open because they really open wide, and that whatever your size, you can easily get into this car with, let me say, minimal pressure or no pressure at all. The one we have here, of course, has got this what is this, steering wheel cover. Not a fan of them, but it's okay. This has got paddle shifters as well, so you can as if change the gears yourself. However, being a CVT gearbox, there are no physical gears to keep changing. However, it gives you sort of a simulation of that. So if you want more power or more speed, it can sort of just simulate that for you, and maybe you can have a more pleasurable driving experience if you want. The Subaru Impreza is so reasonably priced that if you are looking for a hatchback, you could easily consider, you could just have a decision probably between either this or an IST or an Auris or something. However, you find that the equivalent amount of money that you'll spend on this will probably get you an older Toyota. So if that's something you can sit with, then why not? The other thing about these cars is, of course, resale value. You might find that right now we are in a sort of bubble season where so many people love these cars and so many people desire to buy them, especially ladies, women, young women especially. However, over time, we'll get into the details of why you have to be keen when owning this car. Yeah. So right now I'm actually at the speed limit, which is 70, but the car doesn't even show or feel like it, because like we said, Subaru, the way their engines are designed or made, that was a beep telling me that, oh, I need to stay in my lane. Yeah, one of the things that Subaru really enjoys or maintains is, of course, the smoothness of their engines, because their engines are not like the ordinary engines, which are sort of upright. The Subaru engines are horizontal, if that makes sense, but it's the easiest I can sort of describe for these cars. And so they are pretty much smooth. Even if the engine is so tiny, you'll find that it's actually very smooth. Another good thing is the fact that, of course, I can set the cruise control, and the car sort of just drives itself and gives itself the speed that it desires. And it's probably going to help maybe if you have a long journey and it's a one-way road, and yeah, but I don't know how often you'll use it. However, yeah, the car can brake for you, it can reduce the speed for you, which is pretty cool, and you can also adjust the distance between your car and the car ahead of you. So let me try that now. Set. Yeah, so now it has set the speed to 56. Let me increase the speed. So I've increased it now to 70. Yeah, and so of course, because there's a car ahead of me, this car is following the speed of the car ahead of me, and I can of course also reduce the speed, the distance between this car and the car ahead of me. Now my feet are not on the accelerator actually, but it's actually now it's increasing the speed, and it's so cool. And if you've got, see, now it has increased the speed, so I can also reduce the speed to a lower speed, and it's very, 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 very unique. Still, I have no feet on the accelerator or the brake. It's risky, but the car is doing it actually. Look, it's actually braking for me, and yeah, that's pretty cool. Let me see if it will handle this. Okay, I had to step on the brake because here it couldn't tell whether it was a stopping place, or somehow it didn't do it. The engine we've got in this car is called the FB20, which is we also found in the Subaru XV, the Subaru Forester. And to find such an engine in a small package like this gives you assurance that if, for example, you chose to be zippy, so that can still easily work for you. Should I choose to, I'm barely putting my foot on the metal, but if I chose to, of course there is that whine of the CVT, and then eventually it pulls. So already now that's 100. So if you want more power and more speed and more fun, of course then you go for the turbocharged Subarus, because you can't buy this Subaru and think that you're going to have as much fun as the people who have the STIs, the WRXs. It's mainly a car that you're going to just use to take you from point A to point B. So let's get to the facts now about the Subaru Impreza and why you need to be cautious when you're buying this car. So globally, governments keep making new policies and new policies about emissions and standards of vehicles and etc. So I find that a lot of vehicle manufacturers have to make certain changes just to accommodate the policies that governments will release annually or over whatever season. So, for example, Subaru vehicles apparently, I think in 2010 or so, were not very environmentally friendly. And on top of that, they were not very fuel economical. And so what Subaru had to do was to deal with that issue. And how did they do it? They actually made the engines use less work in order to perform what they actually are supposed to perform. Now, as a result, Subaru made the engines a little bit lighter, and especially the actual heart of the engine, which is the pistons and the piston rings. So you find that because the piston rings are of a lower quality, yes, the engine is so smooth and very fuel economical because it has less work to do. However, you find that it's not keeping the oil where it is supposed to be. So sometimes at a higher mileage, you find that the car will start to kind of take a bit more engine oil. So if, for example, your journey from home to work is maybe 20 kilometers or so, say you live in Seta and you work in town, or Gayas or whatever, and you work in town, you'll notice actually after servicing your car, maybe a month or two after, you find that the oil level has kind of reduced, which is not supposed to happen. Yes, every car kind of like will take a bit of oil, but very, very little and over a very long period of time. But these, you find that in 1,000 kilometers, you kind of have to add oil. Second thing that happens is of course what they call the overhead gasket. So those are the ones that sort of separate the coolant from the oil, or they sort of make sure the coolant, which is cooling the engine, or the water, does not get into the engine. So it just cools the engine around it, yeah, and then gets out and comes out and then sort of is cooled from outside. So now sometimes those seals tend to wear a bit sooner than they should. So you find that the car will also kind of reduce coolant over time. And these are things that most people, especially like now this car has been in the country maybe about 4 months now. But why if you have such a car, why would you expect to be checking some of those things? Well, for this car, you really have to, especially if you love it. You're going to need to check those things because those are the main failing points of these cars. Now, these are things that you may not notice if your car has maybe a lower mileage, say under 90,000 kilometers, but once your car gets over 120,000 kilometers, you're going to notice this more frequently. This calls for something which we must address. You need a pre-purchase inspection before you buy this car, just so you know the actual mileage. For example, this car on the clock shows 64,742 kilometers. Sorry, 64,742 kilometers. However, when you actually check its actual inspection, it was inspected at 156,000 kilometers, which obviously you're going to find that you have some of these issues already. And because a lot of people may not take time to get into those details, they struggle with issues. And yet, I mean, this is a car that you can enjoy with a slightly lower mileage. But once you get into the 120s, 130s, you're going to notice things like increment in the amount of times you have to add oil. And then, of course, you find that the coolant will also need to be topped up over time. What happens if you find your car has no engine oil? Over time, you're going to find that the internal components of the engine will fail. There are some people who drive these cars, and when I'm on the road, I hear them rattling, I hear them misfiring, and some of those things are caused by the fact that the car has no oil, and they don't know. And because the car is smooth, it's comfortable. Once you close the windows, it's actually, you don't feel anything. You don't hear anything from the outside. it's probably something that you may easily miss, what they call oversight. So when you buy, if you are interested in the Subaru Impreza, you need to check those things. You need to make sure you are keen on that detail. Make sure you check your oil every month. Make sure that you check your coolant every month. And make sure the person who is actually looking after this car, so the mechanic or the technician, actually knows about this car and they know how to sort of maintain it and everything. Now, this is an issue that you're going to find in the Forester as well, because they also use this engine, and also that 1.6 liter which is in the Impreza, which people actually buy the most. And that Impreza, the 1.6 Impreza, will give you about 16 or so kilometers per liter, which is really good. This one will give you maybe about 11 or so. And so if you are, for example, somebody who has the 1.6 liter, maybe one tank of fuel should be able to take you 3 weeks or so, if your commute is really just around the town, CBD, and you live just a few minutes away from town. If you live a bit out of town, maybe 2 weeks, every full tank. This one, maybe every full tank should do about 1.5 weeks. So if you want to impress her with an Impreza, then you need to also impress her with a great technician, just to make sure the car actually does what it's supposed to whenever it is supposed to do what it's supposed to. So as much as I'm being quite liberal, this car is literally stuck at about 72, and yet I'm barely stepping on the gas. And if I look at the trip computer, it says I'm doing 17 kilometers to the liter, which I think is pretty decent. So it means that if you drove at a decent speed, say 80, 90 or 100 for a long journey, you'll find that this car will actually be very economical. The interesting thing about big engines is that they perform well over long distances because they have less work to do, because the car is consistently moving. You just need to give it just a little bit of gas, just a bit, and the car will go. The Impreza is comfortable and is usually easy and great for 4-seater, like for 4 passengers, or say including the driver. When you add that middle person, there's a tunnel sort of in the middle, so you sort of have to put one leg here and one leg here, and the tunnel is a little bit too high, so it may not be the best for five people. Yeah, this car's suspension is also tuned well to give you a certain stability on the road. So you find at the front we've got McPherson, and then at the back we've got that independent suspension at the back, so it gives you say in corners more confidence at higher speeds. So I've been driving for some time and I just feel like I could keep going in this car because it's just comfortable, it's quiet, it's very useful. The speakers are not the best, so if you really want good sound, maybe you might need to purchase maybe an extra set of speaker or a subwoofer just to make sure you enjoy yourself with the music and everything. Otherwise, if music is your thing, maybe you might need to upgrade the speakers just to help you. The car also has auto start stop, which kicks in after some time. However, just don't, maybe you want to turn it off just because of what I explained about this. So I would like to pose this question to the ladies who are watching this. What really attracts you to the Subaru Impreza and why? Do let me know in the comments. Well guys, thanks so much for watching. If there's any detail that I left in this video, please type it in the comments below and share this video with a friend, somebody who wants to buy this car, somebody who has this car, somebody who has already shipped in the car. And remember to follow us also on the socials, Instagram, Facebook and X. We live in a country where most of the cars we drive are over 10 years old, and usually what we call the new cars, okay, the recently imported vehicles are actually over 10 years old. And so usually it's a great opportunity for us to actually tell you how these cars actually perform, because they've already worked in those countries, they've had this maintenance that they've had, and now it's good to have a look at their reliability when actually we get them into Uganda, because then we are able to better gauge how these cars actually perform in the long run. Most Ugandans will actually drive cars for averagely 3 years and then sell. So in those 3 years, that means the car will probably get to 13, 14, 15, or 16 or 17 years old. So yeah, it's good to know that actually the car will do what you want it to do. Thanks for watching.